Which, do you know which item you're speaking on?
Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for Monday, October 7th, 2024. We will begin with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Lehman. Here. Maher. Here. Roberts. Here. Stroman. Here. Pettigrew. Here. Sechrist. Here. Bieberdorf. Here. Ham. Here. Evans. Here. Roseland. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we'll have an invocation by Pastor Ron McLaughlin, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able and willing, would you please rise?
Thank you, Mayor. Pray with me, please. Father God, first of all, we thank you and praise you for this day, another day, and we're thankful that you're a God that's in control and sovereign. Lord, I thank you for these here, especially our first responders and all those that are serving and leading in any capacity in this room, Lord. I pray for them. We're grateful that we get to live where we live in the state of South Dakota, in the city of Rapid City, and I pray that you give these men and women wisdom and discernment and direction, Lord. We'll trust you for doing so in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next up, we'll have an adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion? Motion by Lehman, second by Ham to adopt the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we're going to have an executive proclamation for World Habitat Day. I believe we have a representative here from Habitat for Humanity who wants to join. Mike Keegan, come on up. Okay. So I have an executive proclamation here, and I'm just going to read it out loud, and we'll get it signed. Whereas one of the symbols of the American dream is home ownership, often associated with modest prosperity, security, civic engagement, and improved quality of life, providing a major source of dignity and respect. Whereas community leaders have shared in that American dream with a focus and priority on developing and increasing affordable housing and opportunities for home ownership. And whereas developing affordable housing solutions remains a longstanding commitment among Black Hills community, business and economic leaders, area developers, contractors, builders, and community organizations such as Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity. And whereas, while achieving the American dream remains a challenge for many people across the nation, including South Dakota, great strides are being made with a surge in housing construction in recent years, reflected in 2,400 units, many of them affordable units and homes permitted in Rapid City between 2022 and 2024, with a target of constructing 2,410 more housing units by 2030. And whereas communities utilizing various financial programs, initiatives and incentives and working with community organizations such as Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity are making noticeable strides in providing more families with stable housing opportunities. Now, therefore, I, Jason Solomon, Mayor of Rapid City, do hereby proclaim October 7th, 2024 as World Habitat Day in Rapid City. And we will go ahead and sign and make it official. There we go. Present that to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. We are so pleased about this proclamation, and we believe in our vision where everyone deserves a decent place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Next, we will begin general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. So we will begin with general public comment. There are many speaker request forms for other items later in the council meeting. First up, Adrian Epp. And Mr. Epp and everybody else, as a reminder, you have 3 minutes. We should have a countdown timer up here that'll let you know when 30 seconds are to go. You know how this works, but
Yeah. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about variances for sidewalks. I think the city council doesn't often think too much towards the future when they're granting those variances. I wish I would have gone and driven down, I think it's Concourse, last time before you guys granted the one for there. And I did it recently. I drove through there, and it really does need a sidewalk. It really does. There's housing that is very nearby. People who could walk to work there. Instead, now, if they want to walk, they have to walk in the shoulder or walk on the road itself. It's not just about safety, it's also about dignity. And one of the arguments that is often used here to justify granting these variances is that there aren't any sidewalks on either side of these businesses. That's a very narrow-minded view of this, because it's not about having all of the sidewalks built out at once. This is about incremental improvement. There are methods that have been put in place by planning, by the city, to improve areas so that will eventually be sidewalks, and you're disrupting that plan. You can't deny, or you can't grant a variance just because there isn't sidewalk on either side. You have to look towards the future, a future where eventually, as improvements are made to buildings and our properties are required to then build those sidewalks, that these improvements are put in place so that people can walk to work, so that people can have dignity as a pedestrian. Please think of the future before you grant these variances.
next up we have Michael and Sarah Hill.
Want me to start? Go for
We're
it.
here on behalf of On Hills Plaza on Sheridan Lake Road. The construction out there is just, the businesses are suffering. Hoping to get some sort of relief, some sort of help with traffic flow, with just whatever we can get. Our business is dwindled down to almost nothing. And it's not just one, it's the whole plaza. Some of the information that we've gotten is prior to the construction, there was over 12,000 cars a day, excuse me, driving on that road, which very, very clearly is why we needed the construction. That makes sense. But in the meantime, for the next 2 years, there's no traffic coming in and out of that plaza. All the businesses in that plaza, less than half of the businesses there. So we're just here trying to get some sort of relief, bring attention to it that local businesses are suffering.
It's very real. There's 5 different businesses in there, and talking to them, nobody is doing well. Some of them aren't profitable anymore. There's a 2-year construction project on our front door, and if something doesn't change, probably none of those businesses will be there at the end of another year.
We have a couple of notes here that we wrote down.
I think mainly what we were trying to get at is this is beyond trivial. It's not just a trivial interruption anymore. It's become significant, and to us and our livelihood, but also to everybody else that's in the plaza.
It's a location that a lot of people, a lot of neighborhoods drive right past. It's a convenient location. It was at one time. Now it's nothing but a headache to get in and out of there. Nobody wants to stop there. Right now, the way that it is, if you want to go further down Sheridan Lake Road into like the Red Rocks community or anywhere in there, you have to drive a mile the opposite direction. Traffic is awful. You're waiting 5 minutes just to get turned around. It's bad right now, but the conditions are only going to make it worse. As construction moves on, they narrow the streets more and more. Traffic coming in and out of that plaza is only going to get less and less. Our business is just, we're hanging on by a thread right now as it is. A business that was very profitable just 1 year ago is honestly not even profitable anymore. It's not making any money, and it's at the point where, places are going to have to close up shop just because nobody can get in and out of the plaza.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, Rebecca Goosen, and I'll make a note real quick while Rebecca comes up. We'll have our team look at anything that we can do on our end to make that easier. Obviously, we can't stop construction, but we'll look at anything that we can possibly do to assist. I'm sorry that's happening. I understand. Rebecca, same topic. Thank you.
They pretty much covered most of it. We're just asking the city if there's anything at all that can help us in any way, whether the traffic coming in and out. Now you can turn to the left, but you have to turn at Catron. You can no longer go up Sheridan Lake Road to the left, unless you go up Catron, turn around, come back down. It's kind of a nightmare for our 18-wheelers coming in right now. They can't get out. They can get in, but getting out, there's nobody stopping to get them out. So we're starting to hear havoc from them. It is really just, the whole thing is not a pretty sight right now. I don't know if they can get it going faster or still be able to get up on the other side. I don't know, but at this point now, we're just asking for help from you guys any way that you can possibly help us.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Our city engineers in the audience, Roger, would you do me a favor and visit with them out in the hallway about their concerns? And our city engineer will meet you out in the hallway, discuss this a little bit further. Thank you. Next up, Brian Peck.
Good evening. When I first met Jason, our mayor, he was running Frank Simpson's funeral. Frank was an awesome guy. I knew his second wife, Carol Fitzgerald, was on the missions board with her at Rimrock Free Church. He was just a real inspiration to me, and he was a real visionary, and I just hope that I can carry on that vision for what he started. He started all of the whole Deadwood Avenue development since I moved back to western South Dakota in 1981. You know, that whole development has developed into pretty awesome with, you know, who'd have ever thought, you know, when they built the Wesleyan Church out there was one of the first things they built, and everybody thought they were crazy, you know. But anyway, what I'm hoping to do in Rapid City is to carry on that legacy of vision and be a servant to the people in Rapid City. But also, my goal, talking about affordable housing, is to build affordable housing, but how do we do that? I've got a granddaughter that is in 6th grade this year, and, you know, she's 12 years old. In 10 years, what is she going to want to live in? What can she live in? I want to develop for her, not for me, but how do we develop for 20 years from now? Affordable housing isn't possible right now with the code book that's available. That's, you know, I look at it, and a lot of the code book has been bought and paid for, probably, I don't know this, but by window companies and electrical suppliers and all that. Basically, with the code book that we have today, is basically building an affordable house is almost impossible. I'd like to be able to change that a little bit and do some revolutionary different designs, some biophilic designs to change how we develop. Why do we have streets like we have them? Why do we have houses like we have them? Why do we do water and sewer like we do it? Is there a better way to do that? I mean, that's what I'm working on. And I'm looking at a development down in north of Atlanta called Serenby, if anybody's interested. Look at that. It's an awesome, comfortable neighborhood down there, and it's really become an architectural model that I think maybe we can incorporate up here, which would be really awesome. I'm going to go down and visit that, as well as Austin, Texas, here within the next week or so, to see what I can see and do. And I just appreciate you guys' support. I appreciate the board and how that we can move forward in developing for the next generation.
Thank you. And before we close public comment, Councilor Stroman asked me to remind everyone, and I agree, that early voting is underway. Election day is November 5th, but you can vote early at the County Administration Building Monday through Thursday. So we encourage everybody to get out the vote. And with that, we will close public comment and move on to consent items 2 through 50. And I do have, and we will, open public item. Backtrack here, excuse me. We're going to begin non-public hearing items 2 through 55 and open public comment. For items 2 through 50, I do have a couple of speaker request forms. The first one from Jennifer Utter for item number 24.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilmen and women. I am here on behalf of the Rapid City Sister City Partnership Association, and I am here to speak in favor of your continued support for item number 24, a resolution in favor of the support and continuing relationship with the city of Apolda, Germany. We have conducted citizen exchanges, student exchanges, many family visits. Recently, a group of us went to Apolda, Germany, and have just returned either this weekend or this week to celebrate the 30th anniversary of our formal Sister City partnership and relationship. And not only while we were over there, over 20 Rapid City citizens, all Sister City Partnership members, staying with families over there, touring and visiting there, but the Apolda, Germany high school students were here last week visiting with city officials and the mayor and experiencing what our culture is like here. Apolda, Germany is a former East German city, was formerly a portion of the GDR, and so this exchange relationship is intentional. It is to establish connections, people-to-people connections, with just this wonderful result of over 30 years of exchanges and support for each other, and just continuing to support their efforts at self-governance and freedom. The relationship is vibrant, it's continuing, and your continued support is appreciated. And I just speak on behalf of item number 24 in support. Thank you so much. I stand for any questions.
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up for item 46, Adrian Epp.
I couldn't tell you how excited I was to see this item on the agenda. I'm a big fan of Urban 3 and everything that they do. It will give you very important insight into the finances of the city. I'd like to think that over the past year, I've been preparing you for this moment. It will highlight how car dependency works to siphon away money from the city and from the citizens. It will show that the way that we have built out has huge financial ramifications, and that we have an understanding that we do not have the money to maintain our infrastructure, and this will show you why. This will show you why we can't repair our roads the way that we need to. And it will give you an insight into the next steps, the places to strengthen in order to start healing this city. Thank you.
Thank you. And that will conclude public comment for the non-public hearing items 2 through 50. And we will move on to consent items 2 through 50. Would the council wish to remove any items for separate consideration? Councilor Stroman.
Items 19 and 20.
19 and 20. Councilor Sechrist.
Items 24 and 32.
Okay, any other items? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the remaining items with the exception of 19, 20, 24, and 32. Was that a motion by Ham, second by Maher? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 19. Authorize staff to purchase 2 Ford Endera E450 raised floor buses from Washington State Department of Enterprise Services Cooperative Purchasing Agreement Contract number 06719 for rapid transit dial-a-ride in the amount of $365,602. We'll go to Councilor Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know who to address this to because I don't know if Megan is here, but I guess Dale, if I've got some questions, I don't know if, I don't mean to blindside you if you don't have the answers tonight. Maybe we can pick this up later, but I have a few questions. Number one is, it says in the explanation for this, these 2 buses will be replacing 2 2014 Chevy Eldorado buses that have met their useful life. And I don't know what that means, that they've met their useful life. Can you shed some light on that?
To get that answer, we'll go to Public Works Director Dale Tech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our buses travel 6 days a week. These buses have over 300,000 miles on them. They're worn out. They're costing more to repair than they are value. I should also remind the council that both of these items will be paid for 80% through our FTA grant. We do have to show the total amount in our purchase authority, but they will be reimbursed at 80%.
Counselor Stroman?
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Mayor. So, I mean, what do our, so those two buses are not currently out of service, I guess, from what you're telling me?
They're currently in service, correct?
They are
And they
in-
will be probably for another 12 to 15 months before the new buses get here.
So what do the maintenance records show that would cause you to think that they need to be replaced, other than that they're 10 years old?
Well, the mileage and then the cost of repairs, I don't have that information in front of me, but certainly the cost of repair on an old fleet, you'll be spending more on the buses than they're worth, and on an annual basis, that is a very expensive operation.
Okay. And then the plan for the buses that are being replaced, I think you said they'll still be in service for several months, but what's the plan after that?
Once the new buses are in, these buses will be surplused and offered at auction or however means of disposal that the city sees appropriate.
Okay. And the new buses that you're proposing, are they new, or are they new or used buses?
These are new buses purchased off Washington State contract. The most cost-effective way that we could find to procure these buses was off of an existing contract. Once again, buying in bulk reduces the price. If we were to bid these just 2 buses apiece, we would see a significant, more expensive cost on these buses.
Okay, and then will they come with a warranty of any type?
Yes, I do believe so. I don't know what that warranty is. Certainly the chassis will have a manufacturer's warranty, typically of 3 years. The chassis and then the bus body, I think it may be similar, but I don't know that exactly.
Okay, and then finally, can you update on the status of the bus stop at the Oyate Health Center?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stroman. I believe that Oyate has done some concrete work there recently, and I believe that they are either stopping this week or in the very near future.
Stopping? Oh, stopping there?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you. I
Thank you.
yield.
I'll entertain a motion for item 19. Motion by Roseland, second by Maher to approve item 19. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 20, authorize staff to purchase 2 Gillig 29-foot low-floor diesel buses from Washington State Department of Enterprise Service Cooperative Purchasing Agreement Contract number 06719 for Rapid Transit Rapid Ride in the amount of $1,238,626. Councilor Stroman, the floor is yours again.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm assuming that I'll get the same answers to the same questions here. Is that right, Dale? Yeah, so I don't have any other questions, so I just yield at that.
Motion by Seeker, second by Ham to approve item number 20. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody oppose? All right, motion carries. Item 24, approve resolution number 2024-076, a resolution honoring the renewal of the Rapid City Apolda Germany Sister City relationship. With that, we'll go to Councilor Seacrest.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize our sister cities partnership with Apolda and the many years that this relationship has been nurtured and cared for. Just having witnessed how meaningful this is to participants on both sides, the value of this cannot be understated. To be able to share a culture with not only our Apolda Sister City relationship, but with our Nico City Sister Cities relationship. And so I've had the opportunity and privilege to be a part of some of the celebrations, and having seen the exchanges firsthand, guests coming here, and then we do annually send folks from the city to Apolda as well, and just how meaningful this is for our friends in Apolda is just really heartwarming and amazing to be a part of. So if you don't know about this, these are organizations that do have citizen input opportunities to be a part of, and I would just encourage people to reach out. I'm in full support of both of our sister city relationships. With that, I'll yield. Thank you.
Yep. Looking for a motion. Got to get somebody else to make that motion. Sorry. Motion by Ham. Second by Roseland to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 32, authorize the mayor and finance director to sign agreement between the Fraternal Order of Police South Dakota Lodge Number 2A and the City of Rapid City for the period of January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027. Councilor Seacrest, I believe that you pulled this item. Yes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. In regard to this item, I was just hoping to get some clarification from either our Chief of Police or perhaps Finance Officer Daniel Ainsley. I just noticed on the same agenda, we have our general fund and cash balance designations that indicate that we've used a substantial portion of our undesignated unreserved cash balances this year to pay for salaries for the city. So we had some substantial increases over the last 3-year period, and I am curious just what our plan is moving forward, knowing historically as a past city employee that the FOP contract does set the precedence for future negotiations for all city employees, and just that we're at a level right now that perhaps is not being maintained well. So I just think we have some accountability to look at what our plan is with this.
All right, we do have a Finance Director Daniel Ainsley in the queue to answer your question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, that is a great question. The contract that is on the agenda has some wage adjustments that have been fully accounted for in the adopted 2025 budget. What was not included in the current 2024 budget were the CPI and COLA increases that were negotiated with AFSCME, as well as the non-union employees a few months ago that were approved by the council. However, you are starting to see that in the 2025 budget, the amount of undesignated cash that is going to be used is lower than on the existing 2024 budget. In addition, you will start seeing the undesignated cash start to increase in the coming months. That is really a reflection of when a lot of our interest income ends up coming in. Most of our CDs are maturing in November and December. But still, with that being said, you are right that we do need to start ensuring that we are not as reliant on our savings as what we have been in the past. For the past several years, the city has received a lot of additional governmental funds, mainly from the federal government through COVID expenditures that were one-time grants. And with that, there were a lot of changes within the entire organization. As a whole, the mayor's proposed and the council's adopted budget did make a lot of structural changes to help reduce that deficit. And that's something that the city as a whole needs to be working on in future years.
Thank you, Director Ainsley. I guess historically, I guess maybe I'm not aware, but have we used undesignated cash, our savings essentially for our payroll in years past? Is that a new practice, if I may ask?
Yes, I think it'll be good for Daniel Ainsley to clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and so what ends up happening when there's a supplemental appropriation, which there have been supplemental appropriations approved in the past after union contracts have been approved, most of the time, unless there's an incoming grant, you end up using undesignated cash. Or if there's not some sort of offsetting revenue coming in, if there's an insurance settlement, for example, or something like that. But usually there's not, and so you end up using undesignated cash. That is why it is important to make sure that we are not using a substantial number of supplemental appropriations with undesignated cash, because that does start reducing the amount of resources that you have available for future years.
Thank you. I guess, and going through our supplemental appropriation number 5 on the agenda also kind of reiterated that same concern for me. detailed line by line the expenses that we're pulling for our payroll. I guess I would just caution that maybe we don't use this FOP contract to set the precedence in the future, that we're going to have a 6% increase year over year at the payroll level. I don't know that we can maintain that at this level. I absolutely believe our police department are deserving of the pay increases, that their line of work is unique. It's its own scale, its own grade, and should be considered individually in this mind frame. So I would just want to publicly state that. And thank you. I'll yield.
Thank you. Councilor Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to also reiterate, I guess, a couple of things. Number one, my appreciation to the bargaining unit and for the city staff who took part in this at HR and finance and everyone else that was involved, Chief. It's not an easy task to do that, especially when you consider how important and how unique our police department is. They take on a lot of risk, and we rely on them to have a very safe community. And I just am very appreciative of our police department. And I will be voting to approve this contract. However, I will extend a caveat similar to what Councilor Sechrist brought up. I don't want this to be a precedent for future negotiations with other departments, or even perhaps in this particular department. I look at Article 32, which is on page 29 of the 48-page contract. It says that the city will pay 100% of the contributions of the group health insurance for each participating employee, and 50% of the contributions for the employee's dependents. That will prove to be unsustainable in the future, I believe, and I think we have to be looking at creative ways to take care of our valued police department, but at the same time being fiscally responsible as we can with the taxpayer dollars going forward. And so I yield.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion. Motion by Roseland, second by Maher to approve item number 32. All in favor? Aye. Anyone oppose? All right, motion carries. Thank you. That will take us to the end of consent items, and we will move on to non-consent items 51 through 55 and open public comment for items 51 through 55. I do have a number of public comments for item 54. So as a reminder, you have 3 minutes, and we'll have the timer up above here, and we will begin with Kit Jeffries.
Can everyone hear me okay? Mr. Chair, members of the council, my name is Kitrick Jeffries. Thank you for having me tonight, and I'm one of the owners of Puffy's LLC. You probably don't have the full story, but I am sure that you are aware that Puffy's has 5 medical marijuana licenses with the state that are currently going through an appeals process concerning whether Puffy's was operational under the state administrative rule. The process is moving forward. Just last week, October 2nd, I drove to Vermillion to listen to oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court. I had a meeting with the city attorney and the deputy city attorney where the city attorney indicated that Puffy's would no longer be able to complete the legal process if the moratorium was not adopted, and instead, the city would not award the licenses to the next 5 entities on the state's waiting list. I know that there is at least one person on the waiting list who has argued that Puffy's has enough licenses, and I am sympathetic to that. I hear that. We are talking about medical marijuana licenses, though. Puffy's is tried, tested, and true. We are a safe and effective operator, as evidenced through over a dozen inspections by the South Dakota Department of Health. Our dispute with the state has nothing to do with our operations, but is frankly a question about whether we did enough activities to be classified as operational under our licenses. We had a business plan and spent over $3 million in the first year, so I'm a little dumbfounded on how we could not be deemed operational. Additionally, in this situation, the concept of fairness and what is fair goes both ways. That one operator searching for one license obviously thinks it's unfair that Puffy's has 7 licenses. But Puffy's and that operator played by the same rules at the same time that were set by you in the state of South Dakota. Through the luck of the draw in our efforts, we were able to win 7 of those licenses. Now, after a year and a half of communications with the city of Rapid City, that they did not want to change the status quo, and they were going to allow the legal process to play out, Puffy's is being told that the process will not be allowed to play out. And I can hopefully certainly see that you would see that this is unfair to Puffy's, and how Puffy's finds that unfair. And maybe the law isn't supposed to be fair. Lots of people say that, but here's what I want you to know as you consider what to do on the issue, particularly as it relates to the medical marijuana licenses. The only reason Puffy's has not proceeded to build its 5 dispensaries in the city of Rapid City is because Rapid City officials indicated they did not want to issue our building permits since there was a question about our state licenses. We are prepared to move forward with that question over our head because we are confident in the answer. We applied for a building permit on a location, but we were denied because we were told that our state license is under litigation. The precedent of South Dakota Supreme Court, however, is that you have a license until it is finally determined that you do not have one. Thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. Donald Henson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak for a mere 3 minutes. I'm in favor of the moratorium and the abolishment, if we could go that far, regarding permits for marijuana. Can you all hear me correctly?
Yes.
Am I speaking loud enough?
It's plenty,
All right.
plenty loud.
Thank you. When people look at the city of Rapid City, they want to see excellence. They want to see a high standard. But what do we have in front of us? When I came here in 2016, I escaped a big city that had a problem with marijuana. My wife and I were raising 2 10-year-old boys. We had drug dealings going on across the street. It manifested itself throughout the city. It's a plague. It followed me from Miami, Florida, where I grew up, right underneath the nose of the cocaine cowboys. I went through that. Not only does it kill people who get involved in it, but it is divisional. It will divide communities. It will divide people. It does not bring harmony. But let's look at what's already out there. Society is very hypocritical, and you all are leaders, and our society is watching every single one of you. We're going to judge you because, as our state motto says, under God the people rule, but God is your ultimate judge. We have cigarettes out there. People burn their hard-earned dollars into ash, but yet it's promoted. Liquor. Some people abuse that. And what do we have? Drunkenness in this town causes a problem for this department over here. And that department right next to them has to respond to try and save that individual from their woe. Gambling. People waste their hard-earned dollars on that. Another distraction. Marijuana. Call it what you want. Medicinal marijuana, pot. It's another form of temptation put before people. Many of them are weak. What are we saying as a society, as ruling members, to put this forth before our people? You all are entrusted to keep vice out of our town. God is watching you. I hope you will stop this.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Josh Brune.
Read John 3:17.
Is it Brune or Brun?
Brune.
Brune? All right, good deal.
John 3:17.
All right.
Thank you. I was just chatting with Jake the other morning at the Millstone, noting that I ride my bike typically on a Saturday, and I go all the way over to Greenlight on the east side of town from Arrowhead. And it's not a big inconvenience and a nice little bike ride, but I believe in capitalism, and if there's licenses that seem to be unused, let's get them used. You know what I mean? And products differ in, you know, just like anything, some's better than the others. A single ounce can vary in price over $100 from one place to the next. You got to be up on all the deals and all this stuff. I've been to their shop in Pier. It's really good. Another place I've stopped at in Mitchell is really good. They carry everything. It would be nice to see stores that just, if we give multiple licenses out, they would all be a little bit more apt to maybe carry all the products. You know what I mean? I don't see any, you know, if you go to the liquor store or whatever, you can get Budweiser, you can get Lost Cabin, you can get whatever you want, you know. But I guess that's all I have to say, so I won't use the extra time.
Thank you. Next up, Emmett Riestroffer. Emmett, I'm sorry if is he here? I think he's gone. All right. Oh, I have a note to call last. I'll come back to that one. Yeah, April Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, for allowing us to talk about this. I'm a counselor. I've done school counseling, family counseling for 40-plus years. I've taught parenting education. What got me into it was my concern about child abuse. And as a school counselor, I saw lots of children who are impacted by family substance abuse. When someone is using a mind-impairing substance, it doesn't just affect them, it affects everyone who loves them or who they love. And we do not need more of this highly toxic THC drug that marijuana has become. This is not the marijuana of 2 or 3% from back in the 60s. These products that are being sold, even in our medical dispensaries, can be up to 99% THC. That destroys the brain. Other countries that have legalized this are backing off on this because it's related to psychosis, schizophrenia. There's nonstop vomiting. The effects of this highly toxic drug is across to the individual, across to the families, and to the communities. I was watching a presentation by an expert that we brought in, Ed Moses, and he was showing a picture of a baby that couldn't even walk, and the parents or whoever it was that had the baby was blowing marijuana smoke into that baby's mouth. It's heartbreaking. And what was heartbreaking enough about seeing that, but a woman that was sitting next to me at the presentation, I heard her say, "That's what my parents did." I've seen the effects as a school counselor, as a family counselor. We don't need more substance abuse. It's killing people. It's killing our culture. 10 dispensaries is plenty. The more availability that's out there, the more likely that it's going to get to our youth to use, as well as just be impacted by their parents or other adults' use. And I don't know if you know that the medical marijuana card is not a prescription. If a doctor tried to write a prescription for what's being sold in those dispensaries, they could lose their DEA license. It's a way to get around the federal law, of which marijuana is still illegal. So we don't need more dispensaries in this town. We have plenty. Let's keep our country and our city free of this very dangerous and harmful substance. Thank you.
Next up, Keith Rudy.
Keith Rudy, Rapid City. In 2020, there were 3 states that legalized just medical marijuana: South Dakota, Oklahoma, and Florida. All of them saw an increase in emergency room for marijuana, hospitalizations, and also poison control. South Dakota saw, with the first 2 years, 53% in emergency room visits, and 57% in hospitalization, and 93% in poison control. The Surgeon General and the Health and Human Services officials have said marijuana is not medicine. It's not designed to treat any ailment. Expansion of so-called medical marijuana programs have been a strategy to establish a commercial market for THC in every state where the program like these have passed. And so the objective is not, they don't really want medical studies to be done about this. People deserve to get the best they can for pain relief and stuff, but that's not the objective. They want to keep it mystical and anecdotal, and so a week before last, I ran across a guy, Main Street Square, with a big sign that says medical marijuana, $150 to get a marijuana card. And so I talked with him, and he says, well, I don't have a card myself. In fact, it's cheaper. I just get it cheaper without the card. And so I was just thinking, well, you know, he's just standing. It's like, is this the way the medical establishment now is going to be in Rapid City? Just anecdotal claims. On the back of his card says, oh, it cures cancer. It's great for nausea for women that are pregnant. And of course, that's the worst thing. Pregnant women, serious health and safety reasons for pregnant and nursing women and their fetuses and babies. And the THC causes many different mental and psychological and health problems, especially for the fetus and newborns, children and youth. So I am not for expanding any more dispensaries. Thank you.
Next up, Carla Schazenbach.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm here in support of the moratorium. I want to take a little different approach, though. I think it's important for everybody on the council to understand what was going on at the time that you had these regulations first put into place. So I went back and looked at the 9/7/21 council meeting to try to figure out what the environment was and refresh my memory on that. First of all, the state had required a community to put in a dispensary if anybody wanted it. So that then put everybody under the gun to regulate this industry. At the same time that the state was still dinking around doing all their stuff, they had a date and a deadline that they were going to put the regulations in place. But Rapid City Council was under extreme pressure at that point in time to get their regulations in place because they had to have 2 readings of the ordinance. If they did not have 2 readings of the ordinance, there was a chance then that this would become law and kind of have a free-for-all with no regulations. So there was a lot of discussion, how many licenses, how do we be fair, how do we keep it like video lottery? But the general consensus was, and there was some back and forth, they had to get this in place so they could have 2 readings. Joel Landine says that it was basically like building the car while you're driving it. John Roberts had said that, you know, we really need to get this in place. We understand. We can come back and review this and see how it all turns out. And I would say that right now is the perfect time to do that. Because at that point in time, it was a new industry. We understood that with this new industry, as a drug regulation, that it came with additional police requirements. It came with the problems of addiction and homelessness that would follow it. But the one thing everybody agreed is, oh, we're going to have revenue from this. And it's either going to be, yay, revenue to fill our coffers, or, in the words of Bill Evans, at least we would make enough money to pay for the police and the other issues that it would involve. So now we're at this point in time where I'm sure none of you would have believed that we would be in a position where you may get no revenue from this business. IM 28 is there to say that you cannot put sales tax on any consumable. which also could impact this particular industry, which brings its additional costs. So I think this is a good time at this point to wait at least until after the election to see what the impact of IM28 is going to be, whether you will definitely have impact on what money you get from the state, and whether or not you can in fact get a revenue stream off this business. Thank you.
Next up, Mary Beth Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and City Council members for the opportunity to address this body this evening. My name is Mary Beth Phillips. I'm a concerned citizen. I live in Ward 1. My husband and I moved here 1 week before the blizzard in December 2022 from Westminster, Colorado, where we had retired in 2005. We loved the beauty of Colorado. We still love the idea of Colorado, but the reality of Colorado has not only been tarnished, it's actually been corroded and decayed by the societal and cultural influences advanced by local and state government. The decline began big time with the legalization of medical marijuana in 2012. We were living in Maryland. My husband was a program manager for the Department of Energy for several years. When we returned to our home in Westminster after the medical marijuana vote, we could not believe how much Denver Metro had changed in just a couple of years. Traffic had increased horribly. It was hard to get around the city. The interstates were insane. Crime was increasing. Downtown Denver was no longer safe for families to eat and shop. Commercial and warehouse space was grabbed up by marijuana growth and shops. Rents increased drastically. The scent of marijuana permeated vast areas, including I-25, I-70 interchange, and Denver Coliseum. Housing costs had escalated, and green dispensaries were everywhere. Our daughter and son-in-law had inherited a small family printing business in 2007. They were doing okay when it began, but going through COVID with the governmental mandates took a toll. Far worse was the decreased safety of their children, our grandchildren. One day, a U.S. Marshal chased a criminal through their yard and down the street. Later, the tattoo parlor shooter killed his last victim 1.5 blocks from their house on December 26, 2021. There was yellow crime tape all over the block. My son-in-law had told us when he asked to marry our daughter that he would never leave Colorado, but they started looking for a new home. They saw a video about Rapid City and knew that the government of South Dakota had not been tyrannical during COVID. They visited and fell in love with the natural beauty, the friendliness of the people, the conservative politics, the business atmosphere, and the church environment here. They moved here in October 2022, and we soon followed. All of this is at stake if marijuana is first welcomed medically, then accommodated, then voted in as a legal recreational drug. Marijuana is a gateway drug. It's stronger than the drugs used by the hippie movement in the 60s and 70s, and today there are reports of marijuana being laced with deadly fentanyl. I and my family are in favor of a moratorium on the 5 licenses for medicinal marijuana in Rapid City. Why aren't 10 licenses sufficient to supply the demand in Rapid City? I've been told that Sioux Falls has only 2 licensed dispensaries.
Mrs. Phillips, your
Why-
time's up, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah. Final speaker request from James Moore.
I'm here to speak on behalf of the moratorium. I agree with it completely, and I would love to see marijuana put completely to rest in our city. I'm a veteran. I'm a former special agent in charge at one time of an undercover drug operation. I'm a police chaplain currently, and I'm a former Rapid City Police forensic examiner. I am now a lead pastor here in Rapid City of a place called Journey Church. I am from Colorado, and I will never return there. This is my home now. I've been here for 8 years, and I am so grateful to be here and not there. I pastor a church called Journey Church. I want you to know that marijuana has been a journey for the state of Colorado that I'm sure that they wish they never would have begun. And I wish we would have never begun it. In every one of the capacities that I've held in my life, I've seen the detrimental effects of marijuana, but none more than being a pastor. The marital troubles the mental aspects of this, the child troubles, the physical effects, the suicide. Just a few months ago, a guy named Manny came to us, and one of our church members referred him to us, and he was about to commit suicide. And he said that marijuana was the only reason he was about to commit suicide. Single issue. It was driving him crazy. It was giving him psychosis and suicidal ideations. We saved him from committing suicide. We spent the whole day ministering to him, and then we got him in a Christian treatment center called Adult and Teen Challenge. Thank God for that. I believe these myriad of effects that marijuana caused are indicators that this is not God's will. When something's God's will, it works out, and it has God's favor on it. But let me just list a few of these indicators. Colorado, it speaks for itself. Let's not repeat it. Second, an almost unanimous opposition to marijuana by all the chiefs of police and sheriffs across our state, almost unanimous. It's still against federal law because it has little or no use medically, and it is high potential for abuse. It's a Schedule I drug. The labor issues speak for themselves. The safety problems speak for themselves. The danger to children, because it will get into the children's hands. If we allow more licenses, it's going to get in the hands of more children. And people like myself and the police department and many others in this room will have to respond to that and meet the needs of those hurting people. The police calls for service is an issue. Traffic-related deaths, foster situations, behavioral health psychosis situations. People are not in the right minds. Homelessness, close association with meth. Did you know that people use marijuana to come down from meth? So marijuana is assisting the meth industry. They go hand in hand. Revenue, we use about 20 times the amount of public tax dollars to combat the effects of any revenue we could ever gain from it. So I would say it's not God's will, because God's will is obvious and it would bring blessing, not all of these things.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That concludes the public comment period for items 51 through 55. So we will close public comment for those items and move on to item 51, second reading of ordinance number 6635, an ordinance regarding supplemental appropriation number 5 for 2024. Looking for a motion. Motion by Roberts, second by Sechrist to approve. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 52, first reading of ordinance number 6626, an ordinance amending Title 17 to add the definition of a data center and permit data centers in light industrial districts and heavy industrial districts. The recommendations to acknowledge withdrawal of application. Motion by Roberts, second by Roseland to acknowledge the withdrawal of application. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 53, first reading of ordinance number 6636, an ordinance amending clerical errors and redundancy in chapter 17.28.040, 17.50.020, and 17.50.250 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion by Ham, second by Sechrist to approve. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 54. Approve resolution number 2024-079, a resolution initiating a moratorium on accepting applications for new cannabis dispensary licenses. The recommendation is to send to council without recommendation, and we will begin with Councilor Maher.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to address this, and I'd like to make the motion that we enact the moratorium on those 5 licenses. I would like to retain the floor.
All right, we have a motion to approve the moratorium with a second by Bieberdorf, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so when this number came up, 10, 15, nobody really knew exactly what the right number should have been. I don't have a problem with medical marijuana. I have a problem with the number of dispensaries we're looking to add to Rapid City. If you look at Rapid City, we're going to have 10 really soon here. There's 5 in Sioux Falls, which is more than twice our size. Meade County wanted to increase their number of dispensaries, so they had a public vote. They have 1 in Meade County. It was defeated 2-1 against more dispensaries. We have to consider, we've heard about Colorado, but the difference in our state is that a jurisdiction must allow a dispensary. We cannot say no. In Colorado, over 60% of the jurisdictions have banned marijuana. in New York State, you would think New York is pretty liberal, right? New York State, 58% of jurisdictions have banned marijuana. So I just think now is the time to put this on these 5 licenses, take them off the table, and maybe we have to readdress it after the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councilor Roberts. And I think I just bumped you. My bad. One of us bumped. There you go, sir.
Yeah, one of us bumped. So, can I ask Vicki Fisher a quick question?
Absolutely. Ms.
Thank
Fisher.
you. So, Vicki, it was interesting talking to Puffy's the other day about that, about the building permit on 915 West Main. They said that the state of South Dakota asked the city of Rapid City not to okay that building permit. Is that correct?
Ms. Fisher, the floor is yours.
I must admit, I don't know the specifics behind that. Perhaps the attorney's office does. I don't know why the state would issue that. I'm not aware of it.
Well, do you know why that building permit wasn't issued for Puffy's?
Without visiting with my building official, I couldn't answer that question here.
Okay.
My apologies.
It was interesting talking to them and them saying that the state of South Dakota had asked the city of Rapid City to deny that building permit when the council had supported that location and said it was okay for them to be there. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of why they didn't get a building permit. And the interesting part about it was, you know, there was another location that at that time the council voted to not okay, which was okayed in the second round. So I find it interesting. I'd like to get to the bottom of why they did not get that permit, even though the state is holding on to their license and they wanted to invest the money in that location. It's their money. They're private, you know, they're a private business. If they don't get their license from the state, unfortunately, that's their money. And I'm done with you, Vicki, so thank you. But that's their money. I find it interesting, though, we spent so much time putting together this ordinance a few years back, and then we wait and we wait and we wait until another council comes in, and then we come in to do this moratorium, which I think is interesting because there's a lot of people that spend a lot of money to get in that position to be able to possibly get these licenses. So, you know, I always find it very offensive when the government changes their rules in the middle of the game. And my recommendation for right now would be to probably table this and look at it after the election, because we don't know what's going to happen in November. We don't know what's going to happen with Puffy's lawsuit. I mean, there's so much up in the air right now, and then this comes out before us. I find the timing kind of odd on it, and I will not vote on a moratorium. I personally, I don't care if there's 10 licenses or 100, because, you know, the market's going to dictate how many of these businesses are open a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I'm probably going to come back in and make a motion to table this. Thank you.
Pat Roseland, you have the floor.
Thank you. Ever since this ordinance revision came to me, internally there's a lot of angst in my body. I never used marijuana. I've seen a lot of what marijuana can do to people. I voted for the medical marijuana when it came up because I was in the healthcare field, and I know that it works very well for some nausea that is intractable in some cancer patients and others. But hearing tonight, and I heard this at the Legal Finance also, so this young man was showing his card, and he said it was okay to use for pregnancy. The card says, used for chronic debilitating pain, severe nausea, not associated with pregnancy. And you was in your eyes twice, and you read it as used for pregnancy, and I feel that's wrong. It's trying to steer people here in the audience and us into believing that. And I knew better when you read it the first time, but and Kittrick sent me an email with the cards, and I brought it up tonight just to make sure. So I talked to quite a few people, those who were in favor and those who were against. And at this point, I joined the council, I ran for council to do what was best for Rapid City, not for a few, but for the whole city. So I'm gonna change my mind and I will vote for the moratorium tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Stroman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be in support of the moratorium for a couple of reasons. We had this process set up, and everybody played by the same process to obtain their licenses. And Puffy's is now been told by the state that they haven't become operational, and that's subject to a Supreme Court case, as Mr. Jeffries said. And until that Supreme Court case is resolved, I don't know that they are not operational, and I think that they're still entitled to their license. And so I don't think that it's a good idea to go and give it to someone else at this time. I don't give much deference to the number of licenses that have been issued. I was part of the council at the time. We didn't really have much guidance as to how to determine the number of licenses that we would issue. We have more licenses authorized than Sioux Falls, which is more than twice the size of Rapid City. I feel like when we were picked that number, we literally almost picked it out of the air, because we had one person who said no limitations because the market will dictate it, and there was some merit to that position. We had someone else that said no licenses, we should have it by the city, and I think there's owned by the city, and I think that that also had some merit. So there was no real rationale, so I'm not giving any deference to that. And I guess the bottom line also to me is with the current number of dispensaries that exist and are open for business, it seems I haven't heard anything from any card-carrying user that's been unable to get their prescription filled. And I think so for right now, I'm just content to have a moratorium until all these different issues get resolved. I yield.
Thank you. Next, Councilor Sechrist.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought I'd just chime in on my input in this matter. And thank you all for your public comment on this. I view this from the viewpoint of every other industry in the city. The citizens of South Dakota have already voted to legalize medical marijuana, so we're not here to debate the morality of this issue. This issue has been decided. Also, no one is encouraging anyone to use marijuana while pregnant or making any poor life decisions. There's obviously a lot of education and sometimes unintended consequences that come along with any recreational activity, such as drinking, marijuana use, cigarettes. We heard that earlier. So if the number of liquor stores in Rapid City were limited and 5 operators were found to be out of compliance, would the city opt to do a moratorium on licensing as opposed to following the policy adopted by City Council? We had just considered reducing the hours of alcohol sales a few weeks back, and were unsuccessful in limiting 3 hours of alcohol sales in the city. Anyhow, I can't support the moratorium. I will be voting no on this today on the principle that we provided the opportunity for our community members to purchase an opportunity to go into this lottery. People have contributed their savings, and we live in a free market, a capitalistic society where this opportunity was provided, and the grounds that were, the rules that were established to change them in the middle of the game. I just don't feel that to be right or just at this time. I would be fine holding on this until November and determining what course we need to take. But to just say that these licenses are no longer available, I just don't find that to be a fair process. Thank you.
Next up, Jesse Ham.
So this is one of my favorite things to deal with is a situation that I was not a part of at the beginning, and we're now looking at it as a cleanup. What we've got in part is the first person that said that this is a divisive item is couldn't be more correct. I've watched other communities walk through this for now at least 10 years. There's a whole series of things that no one's discussed involving how cartels deal with dispensaries and how that process goes. It's not nice, it's not kind, it's much more divisive and more direct than anybody's talked about here. I won't get into that tonight, but I'll say this, that I'm not a fan of modulating any kind of free market, but tonight I'm in favor of this moratorium. Thank you.
City Attorney wishes to come in to the discussion. Joel?
Thank you, Mayor.
Whoops, I just bumped you out. You're going to have to chime back in.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I just want to be clear about something. The moratorium doesn't permanently eliminate these 5 licenses. It just maintains the status quo until likely in November, until we come forward. If you were to approve the moratorium, a decision on what to do with these 5 licenses wouldn't be made until later and likely after the vote. So we had the most information available before you make any decision on what to do with the 5 licenses. Really, it just maintains the status quo until after the election.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilor Roberts, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to make a substitute motion to table this if I can get a second.
Got a motion by Roberts to table, second by Lehman. With that, that's an automatic vote, and we're going to go to a roll call vote on the table. If that fails, we'll go back to the vote on the moratorium. So Heidi, we'll have you take the roll call, please.
Lehman? Maher?
No.
Roberts? Stroman? Pettigrew? Sechrist? Bieberdorf? Ham? Evans? Roseland? Tie, 5-5.
All right, chair votes no on tabling. That will take us on to the original motion, which was an affirmative vote for the moratorium. Once again, we will take a roll call vote for that.
Lehman? No. Maher?
Yes.
Roberts? Stroman?
Yes.
Pettigrew? No. Sechrist? No. Bieberdorf?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Evans?
No.
Roseland?
Yes.
Tie vote.
All right, chair votes aye. So we will deal with this at a later date. For now, that puts a pause on the program. We will move on to item number 55. A request by Advanced Design Engineering and Surveying, Inc. for Drew Hayde for preliminary subdivision plans for lots 1 and 2 of Block 5 of Morningside Addition, generally described as being located southwest of Blue Jay Drive and Nickel Street intersection. The recommendations to approve with stipulations. Motion by Roberts, second by Ham to approve with stipulations. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the end of the public hearing items or the non-consent items. We will move on to public hearing item 56, an open public comment for item 56. I do not have any speaker request forms, so we will close the public hearing for item 56 and move on to consent public hearing items number 56. And do we have a motion? Got a motion to approve item 56. Do we have a second? Second by Ham. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. That takes us to the end of consent public hearing calendar, and we will move on to non-consent public hearing item 57. Approve resolution number 2024-015, a request by TUI Design Group for Northwestern Engineering for a vacation of right-of-way property generally described as being located at north of East Watertown and east of Spruce Street, Fiegel subdivision. This item was continued from the September 16th City Council meeting, and the recommendation is to continue to the October 21st, 2024 City Council meeting. Motion by Lehman, second by Ham to continue this to October 21st. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion to enter executive session. Motion by Roseland, second by Ham to move to executive session. All in favor? Any opposed? We're in executive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Roseland, for calling.
Do we have a motion to come out of executive session? Got a motion by Roseland, second by Ham to come out of executive session. All in favor? All right, we're out of executive session. Next, we'll move on to the bill list, and for that, we will go to Finance Director Daniel Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The total bills are $18,950,052.30.
Move to approve?
Got a motion to approve item 58 by Lehman, second by Sechrist. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn? Got a motion by Lehman, second by Maher to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.